The first thing you definitely don't say in academia is, I did not contribute anything to that paper. Now, I think every single academic has got their name on a paper where they have done no work. And by paper, I mean a peer-reviewed paper that has been published in a reputable journal. Now, as someone who put people's names on my papers, even though they did nothing, I understand the game. The game is that if someone higher up than you has even done the smallest amount of supervision or is just on the grant application of the project that you're now working under, you put their name on that paper, no doubt. And that's just part of the academic game. But not a single person would say out loud, oh, you see this paper? Yeah, I did nothing for this, but it's contributing to my career and my success as an academic. But, I'll take what I can get. But that is exactly what happens, and it happens far more often than we like to think. I know that I've got my names on papers for doing the smallest amount of work, and by putting my name on their papers, what they're expecting later on is that like a trade of papers. So I will put their names on my papers later on. And because academia is run on H indexes and the number of citations you get, this is going to be gamed time and time again. So yeah, no one will say that. See this paper? Did nothing for it. That is good return on investment. You would never say in a public forum that a university has its shortcomings or is rubbish in a certain way. I know of one person who talked about how hard it was for early career researchers to get their names on papers and grants and sort of start their academic career building. And they said that to a journalist. That then got quoted in a magazine, an industrial kind of like very specific magazine. And he got a phone call that week from the Dean of Research to say, if you do this again, we'll cancel your contract. Now, universities and institutions are so very protective about their branding, about what people say about them. So you cannot say as an academic that the university has these issues, because it will come back to bite you, no doubt. It's kind of that thing like, don't bite the hand that feeds you, because you may be out of a job. And then once you get that reputation, the academic world is very small and no one else will want to employ you. So it is very, very tough to see progress in a university if people can't actually say what's going on. But we're all talking about it secretly behind our office doors and in the lunchroom. You just can't say it in a public forum. I've heard this one whispered in the corridors of where I used to work. And essentially, it's along the lines of, I wouldn't get my job if I applied for it today. I've heard this while people were looking at candidates for a new position. In an old place that I used to work, a university, there was a position for a tenured academic, like a lecturing role. And they were looking at the candidates that were applying, and they were phenomenal. Massive H index, huge amount of grants being brought in. And compared to the academics that have currently got their tenured position, there is no way that if you just fired everyone in the university, that most of the tenured academics would actually get their jobs back, because it is so much more competitive now. But we like to pretend that the people that are there have got it on merit, and that it's not like a massive dose of luck as well. So you'd never hear a tenured professor saying, well, I don't deserve to be here because relative to the pool that's out there, these guys are much better. You just keep that quiet, you keep chugging along, and you hope the university doesn't realise. There was, in fact, a huge restructure at an old university, I'm remembering now, and people were actually scared because there was a chance that they would all have to reapply for their positions based on their current publications and outputs. And some of them, i.e. most of them probably, would never have got their job back. It never actually happened that way, but you just keep that bit quiet. Like, oh, I'm actually now, compared to the rest of the world, not suitable for this position. Now, this may just be my field. Let me know in the comments, but in my field, there are tons of non-reproducible results that get published. So you would never say, oh, well, this paper, yeah, we can't really reproduce the results, but we'll put it in for peer review anyway. There's a certain benefit to just ignoring the reproducibility of your work and putting it in for peer review. If it passes peer review, great. Then you kind of let the field sort out whether it's good or not. But you would never say in a peer-reviewed paper, well, we only did this once and we don't really know why. We can't reproduce it, but never mind. Anyway, here's the results. But that's essentially what they're doing, but they hide it in language and statistics. And maybe they don't say it directly, but you can actually sort of like pick out the papers where it's like, hang on, how many times did they actually do this? If it's not explicitly sort of like said in the paper, you just have to assume they've done it once and they don't know why it's actually like working. It was terrible, isn't it? Let me know if that's true for your field too. You would never say that person's a bit of an arsehole, but they're so successful that we let them get away with almost anything. The university absolutely loves researchers and academics that can bring in money and papers and maybe some like undergraduate stuff so they can charge tuition fees. But ultimately, you would never actually say that out loud, but everyone knows it happens. Everyone knows that arsehole professor that doesn't really do any admin work, that doesn't really care for all of the university stuff, just does their work, is allowed to kind of just do that because they bring in money and papers to the university. And so everyone knows who that professor is in their department, but you can't say it out loud, but you do kind of whisper it a little bit, don't you? Be like, well, why is he still here? Well, because he's very, very good at bringing in grant money. As a lecturer and an academic, like I was in the past, I actually knew what the job situation was for new graduates. For example, it was terrible. Especially in Australia. There was no jobs for chemists, there was no job for physicists, really. It was highly competitive. But I would never say that to a room full of chemistry kind of undergraduates. I would lecture sometimes to up to 200, 250 first years. And really, the first thing I should have gone out and done is gone, hi, my name's Dr. Stapleton, I'll be your lecturer, but before you continue, before you invest any more time in this, did you know that the chances of you actually getting employed in your current position are this? And I think a lot of people would be surprised at the statistics in given fields because you kind of just assume that highly specialized knowledge results in highly specialized careers and therefore a lot of money. But that's not how it happens. And so we don't say it out loud, but every single academic should kind of do that presentation at the beginning, the first lecture of the university. And then it would just allow people to recalibrate like why they're there, what they're doing, and help mold their careers and their educational choices so that they do get a job that is fulfilling and is in demand on the other side. So yeah, you just don't say that. You just go deliver your content, and then when they get to the end and they go, there's no jobs, you go, oh yeah, I knew that. I knew that. I just wasn't allowed to say it. You're also not allowed to fail students often. Now, if someone fails an exam, they've failed. There's nothing you can do to help them. But in academia, it's actually really hard to actually fail a student if it's, say, coursework based. You give them so many opportunities, and that's because universities have become large businesses where the students are the customers. If you are paying thousands, hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars for your degree, you want a result. You are the customer. And so if you fail the exam, well, there's nothing we can do. But as lecturers and academics, we will do our absolute utmost to make sure that you pass all of the components of the course. Because if you don't, it's actually just a massive pain in the ass for us. So we will push you, we will bump you, we will give you extra opportunities because it's just more hassle if you fail. So you would never say, oh, you see this student, yeah, well, they don't really deserve to pass this part, but I just let them through anyway. I bumped them up a little bit. But it happens all the time, rightly or wrongly. Sometimes putting well-known academics on your papers will get them accepted into peer-reviewed journals. So what you've got to do is find well-known scientists and just put their name on the paper. I was actually doing a bit of research in the battery field, and I found that there were one or two names that came up in high-ranking journals all the time. I asked myself, why? Is it that this person is genuinely contributing to like hundreds of papers a year, or is it that they are just well known in the field. Like this person had a type of battery named after them. And so this is that argument for like blind or double blind peer review. Because if you don't know the authors on the paper, you can actually sort of like judge the paper on its own merit. Rather than, oh, well, that person's got his name on it, so it must be good. Like, there's that assumption that goes into it. And if you're peer reviewing, there's no doubt there's a huge bias if you look at the institutions that are on it, if you look at the names that are on it, because you just assume that it's good work if it's by a certain person or institution, when quite often they're not actually that much better. It's just that they're well known. So you'd never say, oh, well, the only reason my paper got in is because I put this dude on it and everyone knows him and that's it. But it happens. The last thing that I think people wouldn't say is that the only reason they've mentioned a particular application in their paper is because it's trendy. In the nanotechnology field, we would jump from application to application based on how trendy it was at the time, because I can do the same research, but now it's all about marketing, right? I'll do the same research, but I'll say it's applicable for climate change or renewable energy or for something trendy, like I don't know what's trendy now. But by marketing your research, by talking about the latest trendy application, you're more likely to capture the interest of editors, which will then send it to people to peer review, and then those people will also be wowed by the fact that you've got your new fancy application of your materials. And we will jump from one to the other with no regard for whether or not it's actually a viable application. As long as we can squeeze it in a little bit and boost the chances of our paper being accepted and reviewed, perfect. So you'd never say, well, the only reason this got in is because I actually lied about its applications. No idea if it would actually be useful for this trendy application. But yeah, it is, apparently, past peer review. So there we are. There are all of the things that you're not allowed to say out loud in academia, but I've just told you them all, so I'm probably going to get in trouble. All right, then let me know in the comments what you would add to that. I read all of the comments and you add so much. Thank you for contributing because it really does help. Also, there are more ways to get involved with me. The first way is academiainsider.com. That's my project where I've got my ebooks, the Ultimate Academic Writing Toolkit, as well as the PhD Survival Guide. I've also got the Insider Forum there, and I'm filling it out with a blog with loads of useful information for you. And the second way, if you want a little bit of a freebie, is my newsletter, where you can sign up and you get 5 emails that include the perfect daily schedule, how to write the perfect abstract, the tools I use, the podcasts I've been on, and more. It's exclusive content available for free, so you're not really losing or missing out on anything, are you? It's worth the risk with your email, I promise you. All right then, I won't send you spam either. Never, no spam, no selling, no spam, all of that. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.